Abandon all prejudices, all ye who enter here. Park your paradigms, perk up your ears, and open your mind, as we now shine the laser light of reason on the topic of Layered Thinking 101. Establish and trust your axioms. Hi, I'm David Bolton, and welcome to Part 5 of this series of podcasts dedicated to helping people think more clearly, make sounder judgments, and above all, to unceasingly question instead of naively accepting what others want us to believe. For this is the path of Socrates. Now, I hope you weren't put off or even scared by the title of this MP3. I mean, Layered Thinking 101? What is that? And establish and trust your axioms? Well, axioms, what could that be again? Don't be afraid at all. I don't care who you are. You don't have to have studied philosophy. You don't have to have even gone to high school to understand what I'm going to tell you today. It's really very easy, and it's much more important than you may think. First of all, let's get to this word, axiom. You know, I forget who it was that wrote years ago that often, if you read a text in some book and you don't understand it, you might get frustrated, but really just because you haven't understood some term used or some sentence used. I mean, think about it. If I pick up a book on advanced mathematics, I don't understand anything. Why? Because I don't understand anything about advanced mathematics, right? Sure, I had some math in high school, you know, the typical geometry, algebra, even trigonometry, but I've forgotten 98% of that stuff. So I'd have to get back into it. Here we have just one term, axiom, that you might not know. I'm going to read a definition from the Merriam-Webster dictionary that says it pretty well. An axiom is an unprovable rule or first principle accepted as true because it is self-evident or particularly useful. Right? Okay, let's make that simpler too. And we're going to use the most basic form of logical example, something you have in any first course of philosophy. And I like it especially because it includes our hero, Socrates, the open, the truly free thinker, right? And most of you have probably heard this before, but let's go over it and let's look at it a bit more deeply. Axiom 1. Socrates is a man. Now, if we go back to that definition that I just gave you from Merriam-Webster, it's an unprovable rule. You could say, well, that's provable. Socrates, if he lived, of course he was a man. Well, really? In theory, maybe Socrates was an alien. Wait a minute, can you prove that he was actually a man? Could you prove that he wasn't a god, for example? Hey, maybe he was a god. I don't think it's likely. I don't think it's likely he was an alien either. He was most likely a man because people wrote about him. Plato wrote about him. Zenon wrote about him. And they actually knew him. Plato knew him well. Socrates was his master, right? So we can assume that Socrates was a man. Now, we can't prove it 100% because I said he could have been an alien. He could have been a figment of somebody's imagination. Maybe he never lived, right? But we're going to assume this is our axiom. And we're going to assume it because, as the definition says, axiom is an unprovable rule or first principle accepted as true because it is self-evident or particularly useful. In other words, we can't prove this, but probability-wise, it's 99.99999 whatever sure that Socrates was a man. Okay. We can say we know that. Right? No, we can't prove it, but it's pretty certain, right? So let's add another axiom here. All men, that is, all humans, are mortal. That is, we all have to die. You could say, well, that's 100% sure. Is it really 100% sure? Can you really prove that? If you're a Christian, I don't consider myself anymore a Christian. In some senses, yes, in others, no. But they would say, well, look, Jesus Christ, he was also a man, and he ascended into heaven physically. Therefore, all men are not mortal. Jesus Christ, okay, he was God, but he was also a man, and he, even physically, he ascended into heaven, so he was immortal. So therefore, that's the great exception. One could say, well, that's the exception that, that proves the rule or whatever. But there are other stories, of God men who ascended physically or who were immortal. And I'm not trying to belittle the story of Jesus Christ in any sense. I'm just saying you can be pretty sure that all humans are mortal. You might say, okay, Jesus was an exception. Maybe a few others were too. But in general, you look at people around you, and sooner or later they're going to drop dead. And just go to any graveyard, and you'll see your grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, and guess what? They're all dead, right? So once again, we can't prove it 100%. Because also, who knows, with advance of the science, if the aliens give us some of their super alien technology, maybe a few of us can become immortal. We can just keep regenerating our bodies. But, once again, that's a bit iffy, to say the least. So we consider this second axiom, that all people are mortal, as though not provable, we consider it self-evident, right? So then we get to the result. What's the result? If Socrates is a man or was a man, and all men, all people are mortal, then Socrates was mortal. That follows from the other two, right? If Socrates was a man, and all men are mortal, then Socrates was mortal. The simplest logic one can imagine. And yet, nonetheless, how often have I seen that when applied to other situations, people make the mistakes that are so ridiculous. They're just so ridiculous. I'm going to give you a concrete example. I was just talking to an acquaintance of mine, and he would like to become somewhat better known in his area. And I said, well, these days, a good way to become more known is to get out there on the internet. You can make videos, you can make MP3s, you can write books, you can do whatever. But you have to be actively putting yourself out there. And he said, well, I don't know. I don't think many people would be interested in what I have to say. I said, well, look, some already are. He does have, some followers. And the more you get out there, the more information about yourself, the more knowledge that you can impart to people just for free, just so people know who you are and they learn to know you and trust you, the better for you that would be, right? And he said, well, it seems logical. But next day he said, well, no, but I don't know. I know he's going to listen to me. I said, I gave an example of Coca-Cola. Well, Coca-Cola is now, I heard their stocks are dropping terribly. I think it's because they gave a lot of money to leftist causes, and now all the Trump supporters are just not buying Coca-Cola. Nonetheless, I use Coca-Cola as an example. I use McDonald's as an example too. McDonald's. Who hasn't heard of McDonald's? You know what I mean when I say McDonald's, no? Or Coca-Cola. You know what I mean, right? How many people do you know that would say, if you say, oh yes, I had a Coca-Cola, it's like cocaine? What are you talking about? Do you know anybody like that? Even if it's like a 6-year-old kid, I don't know anybody. Of course, I'm American. Maybe in some countries they don't know Coca-Cola, but I don't think so. You see pictures of African countries or South America, this little tiny village in the jungles of Panama at a gas station, and there's a machine that sells Coca-Cola, right? Okay. But suppose when they first founded Coca-Cola, suppose they had put out maybe 1 ad, 2 ads, 3 ads. Oh, not many people buying. Oh, we might as well give up because nobody's going to buy this. Can you imagine that? Well, they would have failed. All the money they invested would have been lost. Or imagine now, have you noticed how many ads there are, like for McDonald's, for Coca-Cola? You could say, well, if everybody in the world basically knows what Coca-Cola is, every child in every even jungle in the world knows Coca-Cola, unless it's the Amazon and they haven't made any contact to civilization yet. Okay, they wouldn't know. But even they might wander around someplace and find an empty can of Coca-Cola, and they can't read it, but they don't wonder what this is. So if they see it later, they're going to recognize, it must be that stuff that was in the can. Basically, practically everybody in the world knows what Coca-Cola is, and yet still Coca-Cola is constantly advertising. Why is that? I said to my acquaintance. Why is that? Why, if you have a product, I said in your case, I won't name the areas, and I said in your case, yeah, there are hundreds of people that know you, and you have some clients and everything. Imagine if everybody in the world knew your name and knew what you do. He said, well, in that case, I wouldn't be able to, God, I'd have put people on huge waiting lists. I couldn't. So yeah, I said, exactly. And yet Coca-Cola has that situation. Everybody knows what it is, and they're still advertising all the time. Why? Okay, basic principle of life, people. And this is not my wisdom. This is ancient Chinese or whatever wisdom. I'm sure the Egyptians wrote about it too. one thing in life you can be sure of, and that's change. There's only one thing in life you can be absolutely sure of, and that's change. Everything changes. I'll ask you, dear listener, how much money are you earning right now? I don't know what it is. It might be very little, it might be a lot, right? I can guarantee you, in 1 year, you're not going to be earning the same. You say, oh, wait a minute. I have a minimum wage job, and if minimum wage doesn't go up, I'm going to be earning the same. And I'm telling you, no, you're not going to be earning the same. Why not? Oh, there's a little factor, we called it inflation. Officially, the inflation figures are about 2% a year. You've heard that, right? Well, the inflation is only 2% a year. Did you know, though, that since 1980, the United States has changed the algorithms, the calculations they use to calculate inflation 3 times? And each time they change it in such a way that it looks like there's less inflation than there really is. Did you know that? Probably not. Most people don't know it, but it's true. You can look it up. It is true. Why would they do that? Why would they try to fool us about how much inflation there is? Well, there is. Because, well, they want to print more and more money, which always leads to inflation, and they want to try to fool us. So sometimes they change the algorithm. So they still say, oh, look, there's only 2% inflation. I'm just throwing that in there for your general knowledge, something everybody should know. But you know the banks don't give any interest, right? So you have $1,000 in the bank. And maybe next year you say, oh, look, I still have $1,000 in the bank. I'm proud of myself because I didn't spend it. I say, you don't have $1,000 in the bank. If you have $1,000 in the bank right now, with that $1,000, what is money? It's purchasing power. You can purchase goods for, in today's value, $1,000. But because of inflation, next year, that $1,000 will only buy you, compared to now, $980 worth of goods. In other words, you have to take off that 2%. Right? So you take off the 2%, and next year, in purchasing power, you only have $980. That's if the inflation is only 2%. I tell you it's higher than that. It's really higher than that. So actually, even with minimum wage, the same thing. If you earn your $7, whatever it is, $7.15 or $7.50, I don't know what it is in America now. If you're earning the same wages, you're not really earning the same because the purchasing power is less, and you're actually losing money. Because your rent's probably not going to go down 2%, and your food costs aren't going to, no, they're going up meanwhile, right? They're always going up, generally. Therefore, you have really less money. That's a simple example in economics, but in your life, it's the same way. You know, I'm interested in many different subjects. The world of finance bores me terribly, but economics, as an area of philosophy, you know, how we can improve the economic, that interests me greatly, I have to say. And in part it interests me because of some of the principles you can learn there are principles that apply to other areas that you wouldn't even expect. This principle of change that I just demonstrated through, well, inflation and such things. Think of yourself, think of your physical condition now. You have a certain physical condition. Say you can do 10 push-ups, whatever. How likely, with a certain degree of ease, I will say, how likely is it in 1 year you will be able to do just 10 push-ups again? If you keep doing 10 push-ups every day, if you actually do them, next year you'll probably be able to do 11, 12, 13, right? If you stop doing them, next year you'll probably only do 8 or 9. And I know that for a fact. I was never a push-up guy, really. Maybe because I'm tall, have long arms. People I've known that can do most push-ups have shorter arms. If you have really long arms, you have to push up higher. Probably a physicist could probably explain that. I don't know. The most push-ups I could ever do in a single set was like 75. And I was proud of that. And surprisingly, I didn't get that number till I was over 60, but just because I started doing them more intensively, right? Okay, then I got some problem in my wrist because I was doing too many push-ups every day, and then I had to stop doing for a while. Well, things happen, right? Like I say, change is the one thing you can count on in life. It's the one thing that's stable in life, ironically. It's change. Right? I remember when I started doing running. I started out by a little amount. I couldn't run too well. I started in my 30s. But then I got to the point where I could run for miles, right? If you're to do any exercise, the chances are in 1 year you're not going to be stronger, you're going to be weaker. If you do exercise, the chances are you're going to be stronger. But the probability that your strength will be exactly the same as it is now is almost zero. It's almost zero. Maybe your strength hasn't increased greatly. Maybe you can just lift 1 more pound or a half a pound, but that's more than nothing. Or maybe it's a half a pound less, but then you're weaker. Now, to get back to the axiom idea. My acquaintance fell into this trap. I was telling him, look, man, you don't become better known because you have valuable things. This man is a wealth of information in his area. He could really help people. But he's bedeviled by this idea, well, maybe people don't want to hear what I say. Well, yeah. I suggested he do MP3s, as I'm starting to do. I've done other things in the past. I've written a whole lot of books. Find them on Amazon.com. Look up David Bolton in quotes and put in Koala Land, because that's one of my books. And then you can see my Amazon page and all the books I've done. But, with books, it's a hassle. You spend maybe months writing a book, could be longer than that. And then maybe not many people buy. It never bothered me if people didn't buy a certain book. I have one book that still sells pretty well. Others every once in a while, and some practically nobody's buying. But it doesn't bother me because I was being creative. I just like to be creative. If people read my stuff, fine. If they don't, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I don't regret writing anything that I did. Thinking, it was a waste of time, because I don't write to make money. I write because I want to be creative. And I want to get certain ideas out there because I think they can help people. Other people might write just because of money, and if then they're not successful, they think, it wasn't worth doing, it was just a waste of time. No, anything creative you do is not a waste of time. Need I remind you that Thomas Edison, before he finally succeeded in inventing the light bulb, he and his company did 10,000 experiments. 10,000 failed experiments. 10,000, I repeat. Would you have that patience? I sure wouldn't. I'm telling you, if I want to invent something and I fail 100 times, I'd probably give up. A good example, Colonel Sanders. You know the Colonel, don't you? He was never really a colonel in military sense. But what does he sell? Kentucky Fried Chicken. Another example. Everybody knows what it is, but they still advertise. Must be a reason for that, right? You ever read about his past? He wasn't making much money. He was working in a restaurant. I think it was attached to a gas station. Someplace, I think it was in Texas, some southern state. And he was a cook. They had a little cafe there or whatever, a little diner. And a lot of people said, oh, wow, this chicken is especially good. What do you put in it? Oh, I'm not going to tell people. It's my secret recipe. And so many people said that the colonel, this guy, I forget what his name was, Sanders, I forget what his first name was, even though I liked the chicken, but nonetheless. He decided then one day, well, maybe I should try to sell this on a broader scale. So what did he do? He got his old jalopy, his old car, and started traveling around here or there, trying to sell his recipe place, and nobody wanted it. Said, well, there are a lot of chicken recipes. I forget how many places I had to drive, maybe like 100 different places. Finally, he got some kind of contract for that. And finally, one thing led to the other, and he opened a little chain of restaurants. Then soon he sold out, of course, but they still used him as the mascot. In other words, if you give up too soon, you're a failure. You're a failure not just because you don't achieve your goals. You're a failure just because you gave up too soon. We're not here on this earth to give up really soon. And I'll tell you, no matter who you are, you who are listening to me right now, you have something that you can share with the world. Now maybe that little devil in you that tries to pull you down says, oh no, what do you know? Oh, you don't know very much. And let's give an extreme example. You're just a garbage man. You don't know anything. You never finished high school, and that's why you're just a garbage man. Well, let me tell you, I respect garbage men. Let me let you know a little secret, something that horrified my mother. Parents are always asking their little kids, what do you think you want to be when you grow up? Johnny, or in my case, Dave, what do you think you want to be when you grow up? When I was in first grade, I horrified my mother. I confess, I horrified my mother. Said, Dave, what do you think you might want to be when you grow up? I said, I want to be a garbage man. She said, what? Because she saw I was a bright kid. I was like first grade. I started first grade when I was 5. Well, a lot of kids did then. It was just because I was born in November. Now I think you have to wait till you're 7. I don't understand that because I started first grade 5 and I was fine and other people did the same thing. But anyway, I got good marks too. She said, well, you're getting good marks. I know you're only first grade. Why do you want to be a garbage man? And now, with shame, I'll tell you what I said to her. In my neighborhood in Baltimore at the time, garbage collection was only once a week and was on Monday. because she was telling me how terrible it is to collect garbage, the smells, and it's so, it's so unpleasant. I said, well, it's unpleasant, but I have one bad day Monday, and then I have a 6-day weekend. I remember saying that to her. I said, so, Mom, then one day I work and I work hard and it's unpleasant, it smells bad, but then I have 6 free days, and so that's not too bad. I have my salary for the month. But then she burst my bubble. She said, well, I have bad news for you. Those garbage men, they're not just working Monday. They're in our neighborhood Monday. They're another Tuesday, Wednesday. Well, I gave up that idea immediately. And then I went to something more normal. I want to be a police officer, a cowboy or something like that. I was only 5 years old. So anyway, to get back to my acquaintance, he's in that mindset, well, yeah, I have things to say. Well, maybe people won't hear me. I'll do a few MP3s and then we'll see if somebody listens to me. I said, this is ridiculous. If Coca-Cola, being known by everybody in the world, still thinks it's wise to do advertising, then everybody, including you and including the garbage men, I don't know what you, trash collectors, sanitation workers. I don't want to forget my euphemisms. But if you're a sanitation worker, you're a garbage man, and you have no reason to be ashamed of that. I don't come from a family, of billionaires and all the people were, CEOs of huge corporations or whatever. My father worked in the waterfront. His father worked in the waterfront. And we appeared from family, my father had a cousin who was a cop, and there's probably a garbage man somewhere there, and there's nothing shameful about that whatsoever. And I'd want to say, thank you, Mr. Garbage Man or Garbage Women, all of you in the world, because you're out there doing the hard work, taking away the garbage, and this is really necessary. And anybody who's been to the city where there's been a garbage strike, you know how necessary that is. So I'd like to give my thanks to all the garbage people of the world. And even if you're a garbage man, but you're in the internet, because I'm sure you have internet, and you think, well, I have nothing to work, I'm just a garbage man, get over that complex right away. Because let me tell you, I'm sure that you as a garbage collector could inform the world about a whole lot of things. What do you see in the garbage? Just an example. If you're a sanitation worker in New York City or in Baltimore or wherever, what things can you tell the people? You could tell them probably incredible stories about the things that people throw away. And in India, they wouldn't throw them away in Africa. They'd use them. How wasteful Americans are. Why don't you make some kind of YouTube video, talk about that, to remind people how important it is to not waste things. I'm sure every sanitation worker has seen examples, you're thinking, oh, I see when we get the stuff to the dumper, you see, oh my God, why'd they throw this away? Why'd they throw that away? There are people in the world that could use this. And some people are just wasteful. That would be one thing. If you're a garbage man in a city like Baltimore with a really high crime rate, you probably tell stories about times when maybe you were attacked by drug addicts or whatever. Well, get the word out there. Tell us the stories. Tell us the interesting things you experience, right? Tell us about the satisfaction of knowing you've done a good day's work and you were willing to do a work that most people would turn up their nose. Oh, I don't want to do that work. That's dirty. Tell them that, and tell them that with pride, because you have a reason to be proud. And let me tell you, anybody that does something that's contributing to society, or that at least is doing something to improve themselves, you have reason to be proud. Getting back once again to my acquaintance, he seems to be stuck in this trap of, well, I don't know whether I should do a lot of things to get out there. I mean, what easier way is to do publicity? And I'm telling you that I do these MP3s. I've started this channel. I've been planning for a long time to do this. Not really for publicity. I hope it has that effect, of course. But there's just a lot of things that I have to tell people. And now, since I turned 65 in November, now it's official. I'm in what you call old age. Forget the fact that people say I look a lot younger and I do exercise and I don't feel that old. Nonetheless, I am that old. I just have to look at my birth date and calculate it. And so now, I think anybody, especially you older folks, talk to people. Tell about what you've learned in the course of a lifetime. And don't get bedeviled by those little voices that say, well, maybe what I have to say, maybe people aren't going to listen. This could be different things. I said this to my acquaintance here. This could be pride on your part. Maybe you think, well, if I do an MP3, I want hundreds of people to listen to it. And if not, then, well, I just don't want to. Maybe it's just pride. I can do an MP3 this one. Let me tell you, I've written books that hardly anybody has bought. I don't feel there's wasted time. My pride isn't hurt at all. If they don't want to read it, they don't want to read it. But I was being creative. And I think my books are good. I could be wrong. Hey, buy them, read them, and if they're bad, tell me. Oh, it wasn't that subtle. Little publicity thrown into there. But I do it jokingly. I've never lost any sleep over a book of mine not selling, or a plan of mine not working, or whatever. I think, well, that's experience. Just keep going on, right? So, if you want to become better known, no matter what you do, maybe you set up websites for people, and the competition is bestial. The competition is so great. What you have to do is contact the world. You have to make the world aware that you exist and do things. You can do that better if at the same time you are sharing your knowledge happily with other people. Even if they don't give you a cent, you're sharing your knowledge. You're helping other people. And this makes you feel good. This is a good thing. But what happens to a lot of people is that they kind of forget certain axioms. You notice how I go off on tangents, but then it's always relevant if you think about it. These talks are informal, and I might get off the track sometimes, but there's a reason for it. With the axioms. We had the one with Socrates. Socrates is a man, all men are mortal, therefore Socrates is immortal. Let's set up another set of axioms and conclusion here. So let me give you a couple of axioms and a conclusion, but in another sense now. Axiom 1, and let's assume this is true, I can help people. Now, if you sell any product, and if you are convinced of your product, then you'll be convinced that your product can help people. Unfortunately, I can't leave this unsaid. There are a lot of people, they're out there selling products, and they're not really convinced this product's going to help people. All they're looking for is to make money. Is that bad? I'm not going to say that's bad. You have to have money to live, and you have to support your families, etc. And a lot of people are doing things they might not want to do, and they might think they're things that are useless. Maybe they're working at a company that makes some product that they don't care about at all, really. They're just doing it for the money. I find that sad, but maybe it's necessary for you. But here I'm talking more along the lines of if you think you have something to share with people that could help people. I mean, we see this on YouTube in millions of videos. Right? How to fix a leak in your kitchen without having to call the plumber, for example. Or I looked at a lot of videos before I did I did a movie with friends, nothing professional. 25-minute film about a zombie. Hey, put in a little plug here. I didn't make money with anything. It's on YouTube. Put in quotes, Don Petronilo. That's D-O-N space Petronilo, end quotes, and put in David Bolton. You'll see Don Petronilo, the name of my amateurly made film. I did it with friends in Spain. It's in Spanish, but with English subtitles. I say it because it might entertain you. I think the story's pretty good. It's nothing too harsh, no blood and gore in that sense. I think it's kind of funny. And yeah, I'd like to get more views for that, so I'm throwing that in here. When I did that, I didn't know how to use a camera, and you're going to see that because the scenes that I wasn't in myself, somebody else was holding the camera. The scenes that I saw, a lot of times, the camera works not really too good. But it was the first time I ever worked with a film camera. I was starting all these, didn't know how to put the music in, didn't know how to edit it. I had to learn all these things. It was like an educational project for me. But I'm mentioning this because when I did that project, I was looking at so many YouTube videos. There's so many great people saying how to frame, when you're shooting, how to look at the lighting, how to do this, how to do that. I was looking at one video after another. I wish I'd studied those videos a little more. The result would have been better. But judge for yourself. Go to YouTube, put in Don Petronilo, as I spelled before. If I put this one, I'm going to put this monologue in YouTube. For some of my monologues I'm not putting in YouTube because I talk about subjects that they would ban me from YouTube for putting them in. People should really think about that. Some people are justifying that YouTube, Facebook do all this censorship. This is absolutely horrible. The direction this is going is terrible. I won't say anything more about it, but just think about it. Just think about it. But this monologue I'm going to put in there because there's nothing politically incorrect or something they don't want people to say about certain subjects. And maybe I'll put the link to Don Petronilo there so you can find it easily then if you listen to this. If you're listening to this from the Anchor podcast, I don't know if I can put a link in there. Maybe I can in the description. I'll try to do that. It would please me if you saw this video I made. Make a comment, criticize if you want, or tell me what I did well, what I didn't do well. It was my first attempt at film. I wanted to do another one the next year, but then COVID hit us and you can't get together with people. So anyway, I just like to be creative in different areas. Maybe your strength is carpentry and you know how to repair furniture. You can save people money that way. So you do a YouTube video about it, right? Think of something you can do and you can share with people. It doesn't matter if you're the only one that can do it. No matter what you can do, there are always millions of people out there and do the same thing. Or maybe you have a different take on something. Maybe you do carpentry, but you specialize in a certain type of wood or use of certain type of nails or joints. Maybe you do carpentry in the West, but you use this joint principle of connecting two pieces of wood. I don't know. If you can get something that's a little more special, it might attract more attention. But here are the axioms now. I can help people. In other words, I have something to give people. Axiom 1. Now, is that really 100% true? Can you prove it? Well, that remains to be seen. But you have to believe it. And I'm sure you can. Anybody I'm talking to, I'm sure they can help people in some way or another. And if it's only telling them about some of their life experiences they learned a lesson from, even that, right? But you, I don't care who you are, listen to me. You can help people in some way or another. Axiom 1. Axiom 2. You can only help people if people are aware of you. If they don't know you exist, you can't help anybody. Result, conclusion. Therefore, you must make people aware of you. Axiom 1, you can help people, and we can add something to that. And it's good to help people. Axiom 2, you can only help people if they're aware of you. Therefore, conclusion, you must make people aware of you. Because you want to help people. That's a very positive thing, isn't it? I was explaining this to my acquaintance the other day, and he seemed to accept it all. And he said, well, yes, he did one MP3. I'm going to do another MP3. Yeah, but maybe I'll only do about 3. I don't know, because people might not listen to me. But I said to him, once again, you do 2 MP3s, or you do 2 YouTube videos. Imagine 2 people. One does 2 YouTube videos about a subject. The other does 200. Who has more followers? Who has more subscribers? Now, if the one that did the 2 does something really, really interesting, and the one that did the 200, doesn't do anything interesting, well, then maybe the first one has more followers. But imagine it's the same person. You yourself, you do 2 videos or 2 audios, whatever. But then you persist and you do 200. Do you think after 200 you're going to have less followers than after doing 2? I don't think so. You're going to have a whole lot more. So you're making people aware of you. But this acquaintance of mine, even though I explained all of this to him in the simplest terms, in the end he was still saying, but maybe nobody's going to live. Maybe it doesn't have any meaning. Maybe he's just depressed or something. He doesn't seem like it. And I said to him, you know what, my friend, because he's a friend of mine. I said, I think you're just lazy. I think you come up with excuses just not do anything. There are people like that. Maybe you suffer with exercise. Oh, wow, do we see that? How many people have you known who say, I'm going to start exercising. I'm overweight. I'm going to lose a few pounds or maybe a lot of pounds. And they start doing something for a few days, maybe a week or 2, and then they give it up. Okay, maybe they made the mistake of trying to do too much at once, and it was just too much for them. When you start out, it should be slow, of course. But the main thing is to build up the habit. I'm going to be talking about the subject of habit probably in a few MP3s because that is so important. And it's also philosophical. Aristotle wrote a whole lot about what habit is, how habit is formed, and how we should build up good habits. Boy, there's wisdom in that, let me tell you. But everybody should try to develop good habits, avoiding building up bad habits. But some people have this habit of just being darned lazy. Maybe they know they're overweight, for example, and you talk to them and they say, oh, I want to lose weight. What can I do? Say, well, how much do you eat? And they give you a list of everything. You say, okay, start by this. How much weight are you gaining per month? Well, I'm gaining 1 pound or 2 pounds, whatever it is a month. Say, okay, reduce your intake. Eat the same things, but eat 10% less. And after a month you see them, did you lose weight? No, I even gained another pound. Well, let's look at your list again. Did you eat less? Well, I ate maybe 1% less. As I said, you should eat 10%. Yeah, but I liked it so much and I visited family and they had such good... Well, in other words, they're not disciplined. They're too undisciplined. I mean, I use, overweight as one example. It could be something else. It could be exercise. You want to build up more muscle. But you're just too lazy to exercise. Did you exercise? Yeah, I exercised the other day. When? It was Tuesday a week ago. I said, well, that's not going to do much with me. Maybe every 2 days, maybe a little something every day. Oh, yeah, but there's so many things to do, and I was a little tired yesterday. And all these excuses. What are these excuses, really? I'm going to get into that in the future. It's this little devil sitting on the left shoulder, right? With the little angel there says, yes, do exercise, do your push-ups. And you always say, no, you shouldn't do that. You're tired now. You didn't eat enough. I'm going to get into that. That's going to be subject of a whole talk, right? But to get back to the axioms, how we abandon our axioms. In the case of my acquaintance, it's the point where he'd say, well, yes, I have to make people aware of me. But maybe they want to listen to me. Yeah, maybe I can't help people. Maybe people will never be aware of me. I said, no, but we already established that, right? In his case, yeah, it was, he can help people. He knows that. He knows he can help people if they're aware of him. But for some reason, he thinks no matter what he does, more people will not be aware of him. I said, well, that's ridiculous. If you do one MP3 or one video on YouTube, whatever, a certain amount of people become aware of you, and gradually over time, a few more. But if you do 10, there's going to be more. If you do 100, there's going to be more. If you're persistent and constantly put something out there, there'll be more. But then the next day, it's as if I'd never told him anything. He says, well, maybe people just won't be aware of me anyway, no matter what I do. That's totally ridiculous. In other words, establish and trust your axioms. And here, another set of axioms. Let's run through this. Let's have another set tailor-made for my acquaintance and for you, if you're stuck in this trap as well. Okay, let's set it up. Axiom 1. In order to become better known, in other words, to be able to share what you have, I must make people aware of me. Makes sense, right? If nobody's aware of you, if you're there like a hermit in a cave, nobody knows you exist, you're not helping anybody. So in order to help people, in order to educate people, in order to inform people, you have to make people aware of you. Now, some people are already aware of you, but if it's not enough, I mean, if in your profession, for example, or if in whatever you do, if you already have so many kinds of people that you can't deal with anymore, well, even then, to make more people aware of you, just to educate them, just to do a public service, even if you can't accept them as clients or customers. I mean, okay, if the customers like in a store, you can always use more of them. You just have to expand your store. And if you have so many customers that your store is packed, you'll have the money to expand your store, right? But I'm talking about maybe professionals here with clients, right? Maybe you're a lawyer, maybe you're a doctor. You give consultations of one sort or another. Maybe you give private lessons in language, for example. Something more small time, and you have so many pupils you just can't take on anymore. But nonetheless, you can make more people aware of you, which wouldn't hurt because you could share some of your knowledge. And maybe you'll lose some pupils someday, and then you'll have a source to have more pupils, right? So become better known, you must make people aware of you. Of course, to help people, you have to become better known, to help a maximum number of people. Right? To help people, you have to become better known. And to become better known, you have to make people aware of you. We'll put that as the first axiom here. The second, looking at methods. Which method will make more people aware of you? Well, maybe a full-page ad in the New York Times would do it, but how much does that cost? No, that's not a good way. You're going to be bankrupt in no time. So let's look at methods that ideally don't cost anything, but that can reach an audience. For example, YouTube or BitChute videos or whatever. People will become aware of you. Of course, you don't stop at that. You then put in a link in Facebook so people become aware of you. You do a little work on that. But it's easy. It doesn't cost you any money. And it's easy. Now, you do one video and you put one link in Facebook. Look, I did a video on YouTube. And some of your friends go and look at it and some people that you're connected to somehow. But, after a month, they've totally forgotten you. And to put the same link into the same video, well, that's a little corny, right? Because people say, oh, you already put that up 5 times this month. No, you do another video. And then more people become aware of you. I did this for my music channel called The Digital Harpsichordist in YouTube. It's not a money channel. It's for harpsichord music, if you like to listen to such things. I've recorded the music of over 400 composers. When I started out, it was so hard just to get 10 subscribers. Now, 2 years later, I have 200 and some subscribers. And this is a very niche thing, because it's harpsichord music played on a digital instrument using harpsichord sound samples. I can say, in that area, I'm the greatest expert in the world, but I'm not saying this with great pride because it's a very, very niche area. In other words, there's practically nobody doing this, and that's why, I'm the big fish in a really small pond. So, it is not bragging here, really. I'm using an example. At first, I was a little frustrated. Oh, look, it's been a month. I don't even have 10 followers or 10 subscribers in YouTube. It's been 2 months. I only have 9 or whatever. Okay, but after it took me a while to get the first 100. To get the 200 didn't take nearly as long. Why? If I'd only put up one of these music videos and then thought, well, now it's up there. Let's now let the masses flock to me. It's not going to happen. It's only one. Some people listen to it, then they'll forget about it. You put up a second and a third or fourth. Maybe somebody goes in to video number 120 and they say, oh, look, he has 119 others. Let's listen to some of the other ones. And word spreads. I mean, this is so obvious, right? I don't know what method you would have to make people aware of you. Probably YouTube videos, maybe MP3s, maybe writing things, maybe writing short books, whatever. Maybe just connecting to maximum number of people on Facebook and posting a lot there, and then mentioning the thing you do, whether it's alternative medicine or you're in the legal profession or whatever. But in any case, axiom 1 was to become better known, you have to make people aware of you. Axiom 2, that we can assume is true, a certain method will make more people aware of you. How do you know what method could be best? Well, look at what the experts do. I don't mean big money experts. I mean, look at these people who every day are putting out some kind of video. Sometimes think, why are they putting another? They're just saying the same thing over and over again in part, but maybe they have a different take on people who follow the news. And they'll say, okay, let's interpret the news, these, especially in our epoch today. My God, the things going on these months. I'm 65 and never seen anything close to it, how divided the country is and how divided the world is, really. And some put out daily videos about it, but half of it is just rehashed. They say the same things over and over again. I don't see much sense in that, but maybe there is some sense to it. I mean, I repeat myself too in some things, things that people have to learn. But if it's a specific message that people don't necessarily have to learn, it's just an observation, it doesn't necessarily have to be repeated ad infinitum. That's my opinion anyway. But these people are successful in a sense because they put out something every day. Some have millions of followers, millions of subscribers. Until in some cases YouTube kicks them off, then they start from zero, but okay. What can you do? Freedom of speech. Well, maybe we should start making its tombstone because it looks like it's on the way out, but we'll see what the next months bring us. In any case, what method would you feel comfortable with? And I want to talk about that too. Because obviously some things, for example, this is a perfect example, how to optimize your website page using technical methods, how to improve the HTML code in your homepage so that Google looks more favorably upon it and you get higher up in the rankings. Let me tell you, when I first did a website, thought I'm going to start learning this. It was so boring. It was so technical. I hated every single second of doing it. Looking at videos on YouTube, reading things, how to optimize it. Oh, you have to put in this code and you have to put in these keywords. And to know which keywords for your area is best, go into the Google keyword tool and then you put in this and that and you work for days in this getting just the right keywords. And then you put them in these pages on your site. And then you have articles of this like, oh my God, I hated it. And I gave it up. Other people persist because they like that kind of stuff, the programming stuff, the HTML level, and their web pages might have 100 or 1,000 times more visitors than I get. But I don't care. I don't want to do that stuff. I just hate that. It's so boring. However, maybe you're the same, maybe you're not. Maybe you've already mastered such techniques, and there are others as well. I don't want to do things that are totally boring. For me, making MP3s or occasional video, well, set up the video camera. I want to film myself. Not that I have complex, but it's just too much work to then edit the video. So I do MP3s, put a picture of myself maybe occasionally. I prefer a method that's more like this, talking to you. The main reason I'm doing this is not really publicity, but I hope it'll have that effect as well. Nonetheless, it's natural for me. I like to talk about things. I like people. I like to communicate with people. And if I do this on a regular basis, more people will be aware of what I can offer them. Maybe what I offer them is something I'm not even selling. I have a book, look it up on my Amazon page, A Rational Approach to Cancer Treatment. It's a very important book, the most important book I've written. Don't buy it at Amazon. Look it up in Smashwords. Smashwords. Amazon wouldn't let me put it up for free. I wanted to give this book to the world. They wouldn't let me put it up for free. So I put it up on Smashwords. If you can't find it, hey, contact me. I'll send it to you for free. It's about the abuses of the cancer industry. How thousands of people every year die because they use chemotherapy for 9 types of cancer that cannot be helped at all using chemotherapy. Yes, it's that horrifying. And I'm not making a cent on this book. I don't want to make money on the cancer industry. Others are making billions and billions on it and actually killing people before their time. And the evidence is in that scientific evidence I have in that book. So if you only look into one book of mine, this should be the one. It's not a pleasant read. It's not a difficult read, but it's not pleasant because you'll become aware of the things the medical industry has been doing for decades simply to make money and not really to cure us. And let me tell you, if you think maybe there's a connection to the COVID subject here, well, I won't say anything about that in this talk. But read my book just on what they do in the cancer industry, and then you might be able to judge things a little better. So, to reach people, getting back to that, you could do it in book form. You could do it MP3 form. You could do it in YouTube form. It should be a form that's comfortable for you and that you like doing, because if you like doing something, the odds are you're going to keep doing it. And to reach a maximum number of people, you should do something with persistence and consistently. Make it a habit. Do not sabotage yourself. Do not let some little voice say, maybe in the middle of the night, well, I'm working on this and I like doing, but maybe it's not going to be effective. Oh, I'm just not going to do it tomorrow. Don't fall into that trap, my friend. It's so easy to do. My acquaintance has fallen into that trap, and I'm doing everything I can to pull him out of it. Do not fall into that trap. Set up a plan that's based on reasonable axioms like this one. You could use this for other areas of life as well. For example, if you're studying music, to become a better pianist, people must practice. That's axiom 1. To become a better pianist, people must practice. Axiom 2. I am a person and I want to become a better pianist. Result, therefore I must practice. It's so simple. It's really so simple. There too, there's the trap. The budding pianist says, I practice 5 hours a day. It doesn't seem like I'm getting better at all. And maybe it's all senseless. Well, in that area, the competition is so great, maybe you're never going to be a concert pianist because maybe you just don't have the talent. Then you have to go back to square one and have experts estimate your talent, because specifically in the area of music, if you can't play practically anything technically when you're still a teenager, you're not going to make it professionally as a concert pianist. It's sad but true. It's sad but true. So you have to be realistic about these things. But in that case, you just have to do a realistic assessment of your own capabilities and then set up your axioms. But do not make the mistake, using that as an example, of thinking, I'm practicing every day, but maybe you don't have to practice a lot to be a concert pianist. In other words, you're questioning the first axiom. To become a better pianist, you have to practice. Maybe you're going back. Any pianist will tell you, you have to practice or you'll not become a pianist. So don't go back to your initial axiom and think, well, maybe that's not true. Or with the Socrates one, Socrates is mortal. Don't think, well, maybe he wasn't a man, or, maybe all men aren't mortal, because we've established that. That's what axioms are for. You establish things that are highly probably true. And in the case of my acquaintance, I said to him, look, you can help people. I know the guy. He can help people. But you only help people if you're aware of you. Therefore, you must make people aware of you. And he accepted that, but said, well, maybe I can't really help people. Or maybe I help people if they're not aware of me, stuff like that. No, he's questioning his axioms. Layered thinking 101. And I'm going to get into the subject of layer thinking in the future, because people make so many mistakes because they don't see the different layers of things, of our reality. But layered thinking 101, establish and trust your axioms. To end here, talking about that, about the different layers and the great mistakes people make. It's the forest and the trees. How many people do you know? They can see the details of something very well, but they don't see the big picture. And yet you probably also know people, they can see the big picture, but they don't see the details. It's necessary to see both. If you're a forest ranger, for example, I had an acquaintance who was a forest ranger, as a matter of fact. He used to work for the pharmaceutical industry, made a lot of money. Yet he quit. This was a guy in Spain. He's in his 30s, forest ranger, very happy. And he said he did work for the pharmaceutical industry. I said, well, weren't you making it? I said, oh, I was making a fortune, a lot more than I'm now. I said, well, why didn't you do it well? I did it very well. I was making sales and everything. He said, why did you quit? He said, when I discovered what some of the things that the industry does, I was so disgusted I quit. Once again, I'm in the pharmaceutical industry, but why not? I told you from the beginning, my talks are going to be a stream of consciousness in part, tinged by stream of consciousness. And yes, I think this is relevant. Why shouldn't I tell you? He said he was working for a big company. It might have been Bayer. I'm not sure. European company, also sells things all over the world. I'm not sure if that was the company, though. It was a big name company. I figured it was years ago when he told me this. He said he discovered that his company and other big companies were sending medications, drugs, to the poor Africans, and ones that had expired. Expiration date was passed. And I said, well, wait a minute, though. This guy had already told me that for almost all drugs, when the expiration date is passed, they're still good, most of them. Some in capsule form, we have to be a little careful. Did you know that aspirin, pick up a package of aspirin, look at it, look at the expiration date. It might be, if it's new, maybe it's like 8 years from now, or 5 years, whatever. Did you know your aspirin could have an expiration date of May 1927, 1927, and still you could take it today, it's still going to work? Did you know that? I saw this in a documentary in Germany. Aspirin practically doesn't expire. Why do they put on the expiration date? Because they don't want people to have these stores of aspirin that are going to be good in 20 years. They want you to buy more aspirin. And for medications, he gave me some formula, depending on the type of medication. If it's a capsule form, you have to be more careful. In pill form, its potency, starting maybe a year after the expiration date, might go down by 2% a year or something, but you can still basically take it and it's going to work. But they don't tell you this. It's just one of the many lies of the pharmaceutical industry. But I said to him, look, considering the fact that you told me a few months ago that these drugs are still potent, why shouldn't the industry send them to Africa, to the poor Africans? He said, oh, David, you don't understand what they're doing. I said, well, explain to me. He said, yeah, they're using poor Africans. They're even paying the Africans $1 a day. If you live in like Guinea, you're living on, if you're an average person, if you're on $30 a month, they give you $1 a day, and you have what you need to live for a month, as a poor African, at least. I said, well, that sounds good to me. He said, no, but you still don't understand. Let me fill you in. They're giving these drugs, these medications to Africans who don't have the diseases that theoretically might be cured by these drugs. They're using the Africans as guinea pigs, paying them $1 a day, and the naive African, oh, look, I get a whole $1 a day. And they're giving these medications that have expired, although they're still, why do they use expired ones? Because if they're expired, they can't sell them anymore in Europe. And if they haven't sold them all yet, they think, well, what can we do? We could just throw them away. No, that's a loss. No, we deduct it as a loss on our taxes because they're expired, we can't sell them in Europe. And then we donate, in quotes, them to Africans, and we can deduct the donation somehow. And we pay the Africans $1 a day per person. And there we have a whole big country of guinea pigs. And he said he heard one story after the other about how Africans had bad reactions to this. Occasionally they died. The pharmaceutical industry, using people as guinea pigs in Africa, said he was so disgusted. He saw evidence of this, solid evidence. He said, I quit immediately, giving up. I forget, he was earning like $10,000 a month or something. He said, I gave it up in a heartbeat because I am an ethical person. I'm not going to work for an industry like that. Well, then I asked him, just in case you're curious, why forest ranger? He said, to go out there and to be in nature and to help the trees, to help the animals. Occasionally, he might have to put an animal down if it has rabies, but he knows he's helping the environment. And to have peace and quiet, to work occasionally with another forest ranger. He said he has a peace of mind that's incredible. He's earning a fraction of what he did before, but he's happy. Interesting little tale, isn't it? A true story. So let me add that in here too. Think of what could make you really happy. And then think of how to achieve that. And I will tell you, you have something to offer the world. Think of how you can offer that. Think of a method to become better known, because if nobody knows you exist, you're not going to help anybody. But a method that will help you become better known, that's an ethical method, that's a good method, that a method that can work, and a method that you enjoy doing. And if it's changing the code in your HTML whatever homepage, if you're one of those people that like, then do that. But keep doing it until more people are aware of you, because no matter what you have to offer, it's something to offer. And I'm not talking to those who the only thing they have to offer is yet another picture of them eating a pizza in some restaurant. Like, oh, look at me, my friends, I eat a pizza. That's not important. Sorry, it's not important. It's not important. Say what you like, but it's not important. I have some friends, even people I get along very well with, but occasionally I put in, oh, look, here I am with my girlfriend eating a pizza in some restaurant. Okay, the guy might be a friend of mine. And I might admit, okay, I give him a like, oh yeah, it's nice. Oh yeah, it's nice to see his girlfriend. Oh look, she looks a little older than last time I saw her, whatever. But this is not important. Believe me, there are 1,000 things much more important in life. So I'm not talking to you people who just may become better known for vanity's sake. You're a good-looking girl. Oh, let me put up this picture of me so people can see this nice new dress I bought, or how shapely I am, or how I lost 2 pounds. I'm sorry, for you that's important, perhaps. But for the world, that's not important. And no matter who you are, even if you're this shapely girl, fine figure and everything, and you think that the purpose of your life is just to be even more beautiful, even you have more important things to give humanity. Think about it. Think about what's important for other people, what you can really contribute to them. And just off the top of my head, I've known people, maybe even shapely girls, won't go into that more since I'm married, little joke there, who might know all the secrets of makeup, how to put on makeup. And maybe they have friends, or maybe there are people out there, girls who don't know how to use makeup, girls who aren't so beautiful. And these beautiful girls can help them. They can give them tips and tricks how to use the makeup, so even a girl who's homely can look at least 20% better. Well, you're helping people, because that girl then will feel better about herself, have more self-confidence, etc., etc. Even that is in some way helping people. So no matter what it is, no matter how modest it is, share with people. And learn to think in a more layered manner. Don't go back to your first axiom. Establish the axiom. What is important? Think of what you can do, how you can help people, and realize this is important. Many people don't realize this. Even you garbage collectors out there, the things you could tell people that you see every day, and that people should be aware of. It's important. Accept the fact that it's important. Then say I can only share this with people if I become better known, if I put the word out there. And then think, what's the easiest way to do it? It's probably a YouTube video. Not planning ads, written ads. Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous these days. But actually do it. Contact people only with the goal of making people more aware of things. If you already do this, if you already have been doing this, I applaud you. More power to you. And if you haven't done it yet, do it. And remember, Axiom 1, you know things that people could learn from. You have things to share. You can only make these things known if people become aware of you. And you only be persistent if you make people aware of you in a way that's easy and fun for you. So therefore, look at different methods, think which one would be fun for you, and do it. You see what I mean? The same topic, layered thinking 101, establish and trust your axioms, I could have treated in a more, maybe even slightly more logical, philosophical way, but that's not really what my channel is all about. It's called The Path of Socrates, not to get into the intricacies of metaphysics or any kind of higher philosophy in that sense. It's to show you the importance of philosophy for your everyday life, and using Socrates as an example, a great example, maybe the greatest example. How to think clearly, how to think using reason, how to think not only logically though, but ethically as well. And those two things, if you listen to my other MP3s, you will see fine examples of how logic and ethics are clashing these days. And we have to solve that problem. So with that, I will end this talk, wishing you a very fine day or night, depending on where you are. And I hope you tune in again soon. Bye now.